Now we're going to get down to the nitty-gritty of what Indians are all about.
I still say we Indian people are believers in the truth. This is the way of life that was given to your people. You're born an Indian, you're going to die an Indian. Indianness is a good life. You're facing an Indian this afternoon.
Good Saturday afternoon out there, everyone, and welcome to your number one source for Native American television news, Native News Today. I'm your host, Jason Salzman, from here in the Mvskoke Media Studios. We have got a big time show lined up for you today. Lots of things to get to, so we won't be too long in the opener. But yesterday, November 11th, we want to wish all of our veterans, all of the brave men and women that have served, I hope that they had a great Veterans Day as we commemorate them and their service. We'll be doing a lot of Veterans Day commemorating here on the show, so you don't want to miss that. Stay tuned all the way through with us. We'll have something special for our veterans at the end, but we've got a great show lined up. As I said, we'll have some updates on some stories we're working with, the leads we're working on here at Mvskoke Media, also some information coming up on the traditional games that are going to be going on at Mvskoke Creek Nation this weekend. Lots of great stuff to get to, so don't go anywhere with us. We'll be right back after this first break. You're watching Native News Today.
It's more than just an associate degree. It's a life-changing experience.
You'll see a lot of cultural features here on the campus. You'll see a symbol of the mound, which goes back to the history of Mvskoke people as being in that Mississippian time period, that mound building society. That really welcomes our students whenever they first get here.
The college in itself is beyond the building, is the people.
They're passionate, very passionate about what they teach, and it shows whenever they're teaching.
The instructors and the administration, they really believe in their students here.
After a couple classes, I began to notice that it kind of felt as if I were returning back to something that has been lost for like a long time. As I learned more about the history of my people, to discover that there were very many great people that did a lot of good things for their people, for their nations, and that those people were American Indian and Native American, it kind of brings out a sense of pride that was not really there before.
There is a future for our people.
Looking for your next 18-hole adventure? Then take a look at Fountainhead Creek Golf Club. Nestled in the beautiful confines of Lake Eufaula State Park, large sloping greens and well-placed bunkers characterize the Mvskoke Creek Nation's Floyd Farley designed course and offers a fine test of skill for any golfer. Stay up on all the latest gear and equipment with a visit to our pro shop. Have lunch at the Turn at the Clubhouse Grill. We're waiting to accommodate you at Fountainhead Creek. Give us a call at 918-689-3209 or visit fountainheadgolf.com to book your next round. Fountainhead Creek Golf Club, close to home, far from ordinary.
We believe if you teach a man to fish, you can feed him for a lifetime. We believe that transitioning convicted citizens back into our communities enhances public safety. We believe that every citizen, even ex-prisoners, are important and are capable of change. We believe in reclaiming our citizens and investing them back into a culture that embraces healing and restoration.
We believe
in reintegration.
Things that I wanted to see as a kid that I didn't see, that's definitely what I make now.
Popular culture things with a native slant to it, I guess. I kind of believe that if you tell someone they're good at something, they'll believe it and they'll start thinking they're good and start doing it better. So I think that's what happened with me with art. So I guess it's a two-layered thing. I still want to make things that I think are cool, but I also hope to make things that make people think. I thought, why are you trying to make a film? You didn't go to film school. It doesn't look like a movie. Because I make things from an indigenous standpoint, I just hope that people understand where my heart is when I made it. I truly try to make this for the people. If you have a dream, you can do it.
We are the few and the proud. We are defenders of both our nations.
We are the Stanagi. We are protectors of freedom. We are brave.
We are
Mvskoke veterans.
And welcome back to the program as we get started with this week's content. This week I actually got a chance to go out to the Mike Berryhill traditional bow range out here at the Mvskoke Creek Nation, right on the complex, and talk with Mr. John Brown. We all know him as John, but me and him just went out and had a little fun throwing atlatls, shooting bows, talking about Mvskoke traditional games like that, blowguns, all of that, because they have a games coming up tomorrow actually at the Mvskoke complex starting at 2 o'clock. So I went out and had a good time with John Brown out there. He's with the Mvskoke Creek Nation Cultural Center and Archives, and we had a great time as we talked about this event coming up, partnering with the Mvskoke Creek Nation Youth Council. It should be a really good piece. Hope you enjoy it. And also stay with us right afterwards because we're going to switch things to the Mvskoke Media Newsroom. I'll be joined with Jessica McBride as we break down some of our latest developments and stories at Mvskoke Media. Okay, we're out here at the bow shooters range at the Mvskoke Creek Nation complex, and if I'm out here, there's only going to be one guy with me, and that's this man right here, Mr. John Brown, or those of us that know him real well, John Brown. Yeah, and he is with the Cultural Center and Archives of the Mvskoke Creek Nation. John, I know you're real excited, not only about me and you going to shoot a few arrows here today and just hang out, but also the games coming up for the youth and some traditional games. Tell us about that event that's going to be.
Yeah, the Creek Nation youth decided to put on some games. They want to host the first ever Olympics. They're going to be represented by the districts. We hope to get the National Council involved with us. Their districts they'll come down and be on that team. But we're going to do a bow shoot. We're going to do atlatl throw. We're going to do blow darts. There'll be a stickball game. Tug of war, and I believe a 3K run.
Yeah, and that's one of the things that's so, interesting with you all for sure, being involved in so many neat projects, like the canoe that was just done. You fashioned that yourself, got it all ready to go. Actually, got a chance to go put it out in the water. Yeah, a lot of fun though. What?
It was.
I wish I got a chance to go with you, but we had some people out with you that day. But not only that, but you talk about Cultural Center and Archives. You all are doing things on a daily basis to not only enhance culture, but also, a tip of the cap to our past. And that's really what a lot of this goes into. Our people had fun. They played games.
They really did. And a lot of that too, they looked at the kids when they played the games to determine what roles they would play when they growed up and what part of the tribe or what part of the village that they would take part in, some of the leaders.
And this is going on next weekend, right?
This will be coming on this Sunday, yes.
Okay, and now you all going to be here, just here, or any other places?
No, we'll be right here. The games will be spread out all over the Mike Berryhill Legacy Cultural Center. Ball stick will be down where they have their little pole set up. Great. And we'll be set up right here. Yeah, a lot of the bow group will be here to help me.
Should be a lot of fun, and we look forward to it, look forward to covering it. Always look forward to having a good time with you guys. Thanks for putting it on, John. It's a great idea.
It's our pleasure.
Yeah. It's Jay, and welcome into the Mvskoke Media Newsroom. I am multimedia producer Jason Salzman, along with media coordinator Jessica McBride, as we are joining you today to give you an update on some of the bigger stories that we are working on that are developing here out of the Mvskoke Media offices. And two of those would be some of the more talked about polarizing issues going on right now at Mvskoke Creek Nation. And we'll start off today with the issue of the Myon online reading program. A lot of people had different opinions on this or what was going to happen, and when it did happen, there were, of course, strong feelings on both sides. You have a very polarizing issue, as I said here, because a group of people say the deal as it is or as it was, probably not the best for the Mvskoke Creek Nation financially now. Efforts to bring down the amount, and those that say getting rid of it altogether would not be a good move for our Creek kids and for the kids in the surrounding areas that have benefited from this program. So we look now to where we're at, and we've put out several calls for documentation to support some of this and haven't received those things yet. But we are working on the stories. But Jessica, where does it bring us to now with the September 12th hearing that was recently?
So if you know anything about council, you know it goes through committee hearings before it goes through the full council when it comes to a vote. So at the September 12th Health, Education, and Welfare Committee meeting, there was a $1.8 million appropriation for the Myon program, and it failed to get a vote. So this effectively defunded the Myon program for this year. Now, on October 19th, we requested contracts on Myon to kind of do some research and let citizens know what's going on with the program. Now, we still haven't received that information, but we wanted to give citizens an update to let them know where exactly it is. Now, at a Hugh committee session on November 7th, there was another appropriation up for Myon for about half the original requested amount, and that also failed.
Yeah, and that was just recently, the most recent Hugh committee meeting that came from. I want to point out to you the reason, folks at home, the reason that we have requested the contracts is because contractual concerns were sort of at the heart of it not receiving a second in the previous meeting there on September the 12th. So you hear contractual concerns, you definitely want to take a look at the contracts, and from what we've gathered, haven't been able to get those yet. We certainly have those requests. They're all out there, and so Mvskoke Media on October 19th requested those contracts for 2013, 14, 15, and 16 from the Attorney General's office and the Office of the Controller, and we have not received a reply as of press time. So hopefully we get those soon. We'll be able to look through them, go through them, maybe with the Controller's office. They have been very generous with their time and their analyses when we are getting things with the Controller's office and getting some things cleared up. So there's our hope that we will be able to do something maybe like that in that setting. So that's a big issue. And as you said, in the most recent Hugh committee meeting, Greg Anderson rose and spoke to the council, mentioned that some of the numbers that were out there with Myon, such as the fact that the Creek Nation paid up front for over 85,000 users, some odd 85 plus thousand users, and he had met with the Myon president twice, and the president basically relayed to him that only 16,000 had accessed the program for the Mvskoke Creek Nation in their business dealings with Myon. So you see a large discrepancy of actual users to users paid for up front. Now that's, as I said, Mvskoke Creek Nation saying, here's the check for this many users without knowing actually how many are going to. That was some, excuse me, that was some of the concerns from Greg Anderson that he outlined to the council. And looking through some of those numbers, he believes that we could we wouldn't necessarily have to completely cut ties with Myon, but maybe pull the number back. That's what he did. He brought forth the $400,000, but it failed as well. So now it'll be a wait and see game with where they go from here.
Right, and we don't know what this means exactly for the literacy program. As far as our understanding is right now, the program will be defunded because this funding hasn't passed. If you are interested in hearing those committee sessions to find out more or hear exactly what tribal officials have said, you can actually hear those recordings on the National Council's website. Their website is www.mcnnc.com. archive.com, and that's like Mvskoke Creek Nation National Council.
Yep, and you can look on there, archived meetings, listen. I believe they have a full listing of the 2015 meetings as well. So lots of information in there, lots of audio. It's a great audio system. You can really hear like you're sitting right there for the meetings. And if you want to go back and hear the comments that I referenced from Greg Anderson, the Secretary of Education and Training, or some of the council members that had questions for him and the council members, and in the way that they voted, you don't necessarily have to take it from us. You can go and hear right from the source there if you want to listen to the meeting. So you can do that, as she said, at mcnnc.com under the headings of the archived meetings. Our second big issue that we are working on and that we are awaiting information back, word back, statement back, anything from the tribe is having to deal with the Fair Labor Standards Act, or FLSA. Now, folks, what this means is in 1938, the FLSA was passed and introduced the 40-hour work week, a national minimum wage, guaranteed time and a half overtime in certain jobs, and what it did was prohibit employment of minors and child labor. So FLSA, a fairly historic labor relations act passed, as we said there, in 1938. Why is it relevant to us? Well, on May 18th of this year, the Department of Labor published its final rule updating the overtime regulations with an effective date of December 1st, 2016. If you have a calendar right now, if you are up to speed on what we're doing and what's going on in this earth, December 1st is coming up. And it's fast approaching. So we really need the information on this. We put out information on this several months ago, Jessica, and you can get into that. But where are we at as far as what our coverage is and what we're trying to find out about what federal laws as it pertains to wage, working, place of employment, how it's going to affect the Creek Nation.
So on May 18th, the Department of Labor put out a statement, as Jason said, and we contacted Public Relations on that same day to find out how the regulations would affect the Creek Nation and what we were doing concerning it. We got a response on June 2nd from the acting controller at the time, Kathy Guthrie, and I'll actually read her statement. It says, the MCN at this time are in negotiations on how the MCN will be affected by President Obama's legislation on overtime regulations. This federal legislation will not be effective until December 1st, allowing the MCN to prepare and contact other tribes to procure a system that best works for us. Meetings have been scheduled June 14th to discuss with other tribes on how to best handle these new overtime terms and brainstorm on these matters. Now, I know a lot of citizens are wondering, what does this do? Yeah. Now, this overtime regulation affects how overtime is paid, how it affects employees. Yeah. Currently, if you make less than $455 per week, then your employer is required to pay you actual payment in overtime, write you a check at time and a half for however many hours you've worked over the 40-hour work week. Now, this changes that amount. If you make under $913 a week, then your employer has to pay you overtime in the form of a check for the hours you've worked over 40.
And as a result, the employees that did not receive overtime pay will now be required by federal law to be paid time and a half overtime.
Right, and it'll be an actual payment. And currently, if you're a tribal employee, you know that you're paid in comp time or flex time.
Right.
And so if you work over that amount of work week, you get flex time, you get to take off that time that you've worked. So some employees are going to be affected by this, and so we're waiting on a statement from the nation to find out how we're dealing with this, how this law is going to affect the tribe.
Right, because as you can imagine, Jessica, when we're looking at something like this, take for instance, we're talking about a tribe-wide predicament with saying each budget from each department needs to go back in and say, we have to make room, budgetary income room, to pay the kind of overtime that we're going to have to pay if there's not a plan and this does go into effect. And as I said, time is ticking, December 1st. And we saw from the words from Kathy Guthrie when she issued the statement, there is a plan tribes are preparing to contact other tribes. That is said right here in black and white. We know then either that's not a true statement or the tribes are, in fact, they have been talking with other tribes to try to procure what best works. We're just waiting to hear that as the media. So we're coming down to 0 hour here on this deadline.
Right.
And that's why we were working so hard to get something out there.
And I think it's important to note too, this isn't a deadline for tell us your plan on how you will meet this regulation. This is, you need to have the regulations in place. Like Jason said, it sounds like by Kathy Guthrie's statement that we've reached out to other tribes to find out how they're going to handle it. We ourselves have reached out to some other tribes and haven't received a comment back as of yet to find out how they're going to deal with the regulation. However, on November 1st, the Native American Finance Officers Association issued a statement, and it recommended that tribal employers ensure compliance with the new overtime rule and not delay preparation. So they're stating you need to be prepared and budget for these overtime regulations. We don't know if the proper amount has been budgeted in all departments to help pay the overtime. There are employees that would meet the qualifications before this rule was passed that would receive overtime pay. So we're looking into that and awaiting a statement from the Creek Nation.
And some folks out there may hear what we're talking about in the FLSA nationwide, as we said, Standards Act, but a lot of people will go, well, we're a sovereign tribal nation. We're not under that umbrella to where we have to go by anybody's deadline or anything like that. We fall under this federal regulation, this federal guideline here. So we most certainly do. We can't claim a sovereign exemption from something like this. This is federal workplace guidelines, and it's something that obviously we've looked at on our side, but also, as we can say from the comments and from what we've gathered so far, it's not only been looked at from us, but it's been looked at from tribal administration, not just from here at Creek Nation, but certainly as we see other tribes working on a plan as well. So we'll have all of that continuing to monitor as we get the news, and you will get it as soon as we do. We wait for something back whenever we request, and you should know out there, folks, whenever we get something, it goes to press, it comes up on the site just as fast as we can get it up there. When we get it, you'll get it. So
we've requested from Public Relations an interview with Chief Floyd as well as our Human Resources Department to find out how this is going to affect us and how, if we're going to need to change the budget, what exactly is going to happen from here on out. And as soon as we have that, then we'll go on with that.
Right. Lots of information out there to gather, lots of things to talk about. And as we said, sorry to take up so much of your time, but we have a lot of things that we want you to know that we are diligently working on around the clock over here to get this information out. We feel it's important to you. We feel it's important to be able to tell all sides of each of these and from every angle. So that takes a lot of research on our part, but it also takes a lot of cooperation. And as we said, we're just waiting on those things that we have requested. Another big story, or really issue that we've followed here lately, is the continuing Floyd Jones, the former community development director here at Mvskoke Creek Nation, still has not been brought in on the charges of embezzlement of the nation's funds, also using tribal funds for campaign purposes. Everybody innocent till proven guilty. We want to stress that, but at the same time, at some point, and I mentioned this not too long ago, you worry about the welfare of Mr. Jones himself. Lots of people, wondering his whereabouts, especially the Light Horse Police. So, still out there.
We've got a story up on MvskokeMedia.com, and so that's got all the details of why he's wanted and why Light Horse is searching for him. If you do see him or you know where he's at, Light Horse has asked you to contact him or contact them to let them know. That phone number can be found on the Creek Nation website, and you can call them and let them know what exactly you know. But as Light Horse has said, and as they said in the story, you know, they don't know whether he's innocent or guilty. The Attorney General is bringing charges on him, and so it would be nice to get him in so that they can go through the court process and determine that.
Yeah, and Light Horse Police lets everybody out there know that this doesn't have to be, you can be an anonymous tip. I think that they will take anyone with information regarding just this, you know, hopefully all of this works out safely, and that we can get this matter resolved, and the Light Horse can pursue what they believe to be some charges against the Mvskoke Creek Nation as a whole and its funds. So we'll have more on that on the website, on all of our outlets as it continues to develop, as well as these other stories. Keep an eye on what we have coming out regarding MyOn, the online reading program. Also keep an eye on what we have out on the FLSA, Fair and Labor Standards Act developments. And so we'll have to look at those. As we said, as we get things in, as we get the statements, the interviews, you will have them right here as we book them here at Mvskoke Media. And we want to thank you for staying with us. Thank you, Jessica, as always, for being with me here in the newsroom and clearing a lot of these issues up right here on MvskokeMedia.com. Stay with us, as always, for all things Mvskoke Creek Nation. And that will do it for another episode of Native News Today. Thanks for hanging with us, folks. It's been a great 30 minutes here. We've had a lot of fun putting this episode together, of course, with the nod to our veterans in the first break. Also, getting to visit with John Brown from the Cultural Center and Archives Museum Department here at Mvskoke Creek Nation. One of the great things about when we were talking about with John is, you know, a lot of times you folks don't see what's off air, and we get a chance to talk with him, visit with him, and John was telling us about a lot of great things, a lot of great projects he has coming up, and a lot of chances for us to collaborate and get that on video and archive that for our Mvskoke citizens. All of the cultural preservation that's being done through that department with games, bows, canoes, the whole nine. So we're excited about it just like he is. And also want to thank Jessica McBride, our media coordinator, for joining me in the newsroom to break down all of our stories. MvskokeMedia.com. If you get a chance to follow all of those stories, we're working on them around the clock. So want everybody to know we'll have a lot of great content up there for you as always, and our social media sites. So go visit. As we leave you today, happy Veterans Day to all of our veterans out there.